Happy New Year, my non-existent viewers. How is everyone doing tonight? This is the time of the year usually between December 25th and the 30th where I don't make any videos. Like every year on my YouTube channel since 2015, I've made a video either on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day asking you guys to ask me questions, and then I don't make any videos at all until the 31st, until New Year's Eve, when I make the video answering your questions or live stream, which is what I did last year. I take like that end of the year break from making YouTube videos. I decided not to do that this year. I decided to just like make this video, even though like it's before my New Year's Eve Q&A, because my upload schedule this year has been a little too inconsistent. I mean, it hasn't been as consistent as I've liked it to be. Like, I've had stretches where I didn't upload a single video for like a solid 2 weeks. So because of those stretches, I decided not to take that end of the year break. So yeah, I'll be uploading this video tonight. And just a friendly reminder that you guys still have some time to ask me questions for my New Year's Q&A. If I can't make the answer video to your questions on New Year's Eve, I'll do it on New Year's Day with my looking back on 2022 video. Like, I'll just kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But anyways, this is both my ranking video for all the films I've seen between September, October, November, and December this year, from worst to best, and my spoiler talk for Avatar: Way of Water. Like, I only really do spoiler talks for movies I've seen on this channel for films that I was like really anticipating for. Like, I did spoiler talks for Infinity War, Endgame, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong. So since and I did one back in June for Jurassic World Dominion with my friend Emerald. So like, since Way of Water was my most anticipated movie of the year, like, I decided the last chunk of this video is gonna be my spoiler talk for that. And here's your first spoiler of the video. Avatar: Way of Water is my pick for the best film that came out this like fall season. Yeah, I know December is technically a winter month, but like the winter solstice is until the 21st usually. So I guess like December films can be counted as like fall films per se. And yeah, Way of Water is my pick for the best fall film that came out this year. And if you're generally surprised by that, well, tough luck. But anyways, yeah, I'm just gonna keep in mind, this ranking is based purely off of my opinion and from just the films I've seen. Like, quite a few films I'm going to share in this ranking aren't even films I had a chance to review because of my schedule. Like, when I went to see Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, I was at the zoo that I'm interning at all day, and then I DoorDashed right afterwards because I've been DoorDashing here in Nebraska, and then I saw the movie. I was falling asleep for parts of that film. So when I got back to my apartment after seeing the film, I was way too exhausted to review it. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll just make like mini reviews. I'll make a video giving my brief thoughts on it. So yeah, the fact that some of these videos I didn't ever make any in-depth reviews for, I apologize. But yeah, and there's also a lot of films that I have not gotten a chance to see yet that I've skipped, not because I wanted to skip the films, but because I just didn't have the time for seeing them. Like, I haven't seen Violent Night, I haven't seen Babylon, I haven't seen The Strange World, I haven't seen there's quite a few films. There's a lot of movies. Like, I haven't seen The Whale yet. Like, there's a lot of I've been slacking on movies lately. But yeah, for the films I have seen, they'll be ranked for you in this video. That came out between September through December at least. And yeah, my pick for the worst film that came out this fall is Pray for the Devil. I barely remember anything from this film, and it's so disappointing that we ended Spooktober, October, the month that's for horror films, that we ended on such a whimper with Pray for the Devil. It is the most generic, cliche, disposable horror film I've seen all year, and these nun horror, these demon possession flicks, you've seen one, you've seen 1,000, and Pray for a Devil is no exception to that. And the second worst film I saw this fall is Don't Worry, Darling, which, you know what, I really like Florence Pugh. She's a great actress. I don't mind Harry Styles as an actor either, but this film is the narrative is just, the characters and the performances is just it's just so awkward, and it drags, and again, the whole film it's forgettable. It's a thriller, but there's nothing really super thrilling about it, and it tries to be scary, and it's not scary, and it just did not succeed in what it was trying to do, in small regards. And the third worst film I've seen this fall, which, honestly, not a bad movie, it's Darby and the Dead. It was on Hulu. It's actually the second Hulu exclusive film that we got this year, starring Ali E. Carvalho, who got famous by voicing Moana in the Disney movie, Moana. And yeah, like, I didn't like this one as much as Crush, the last Ali E. Carvalho film that, starred her, that was a Hulu exclusive. Yeah, the film, it's okay. Like, if I had to give it, like, a proper review and put it on the scale of, like, 0 to 9, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 9 stars. It's a meh film. Like, it has some, like, funny moments. It's a teen comedy where Darby, she can, like, talk to dead people, and she calls them, like, stayers, or, like, these ghosts that she talks to. Then the popular girl who's played by Ali Carvalho dies. Yeah, her death scene in this movie, like, honestly, teenage tragedies, yes, I understand that accidents are, like, leading causes of death amongst teens. Second leading cause being suicide, unfortunately. Yeah, but the accident that caused her to die is just, it's quite ridiculous. And there were some scenes that tried being funny, but again, it's like, it was kind of a slow burner, and I kind of just, like, I honestly fell asleep during the third act of it, because I was watching this at home on Hulu, and I tend to get distracted more easily when I watch movies on streaming services, which is why I usually go to see movies in movie theaters, just saying. But yeah, Darby and Dead, again, it has its moments. It's not a bad film by any means. It just could have been better. That's all. And venturing into more positive, and positive territory, I have Spirited. Another film I didn't get a chance to review. It stars Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell. It's a Christmas movie, and it's a musical comedy, to go with Christmas time. And yeah, there were plenty of musical numbers that I really liked in Spirited, and it's a comedy. It definitely succeeded in making me laugh at a few scenes. One song in particular in the middle of the film is called Good Afternoon. Oh my gosh, I was laughing out loud in the theater, and it was a really good time. And yeah, Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell, two hilarious actors, and they had decent chemistry together as well. And Octavia Spencer is in this film too, and she was good in it as well. So yeah, Spirited, I think it's a harmless, holiday film that you can enjoy with your family. So I would give that on my rating scale a 6 out of 9 stars. And it is a likable film. Just like next film on this list, Black Adam, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yeah, I was initially skeptical of him, like, as Black Adam. Like, oh, this isn't gonna be, I'm just gonna see him as, like, Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam and still see Dwayne Johnson instead of him becoming this character. But no, Dwayne Johnson was, as Black Adam was, I took, all my worries went out the door in the first 10 minutes. I really liked Black Adam. It was this whole, like, interesting anti-hero dynamic that Black Adam has himself, like, oh, I'm a hero that, like, kills people and I'm not peaceful and all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, we've seen themes like that dabbled with before. This isn't Justice League caliber, this isn't Avengers caliber, but it doesn't need to be. It's a very just simple, straight to the point superhero film that knew its place and kind of just rolled with it. Like, yeah, this is like a simple origin story for a character, and it's that way, and I thought it worked really well. And yeah, the next film on my list is Pearl, the prequel to X, which this was a huge year for horror films, and Pearl really succeeded in creeping me out and getting under my skin, despite the, because I walked into Pearl, like, optimistic for it, because, I saw X earlier this year, which is this film's a prequel for, and X was a really great film. It was a really good film. And Pearl, I walked in, like, because Mia Goth, I had no idea Mia Goth played the same character, like, two different characters in the same movie back in X. And, like, seriously, give that movie the Oscar for makeup and hairstyling already. But yeah, she came back to play as Pearl in this origin story, set during World War I. I felt really bad for her, and you see her descend into madness. Again, Mia Goth did such a great job, like, playing the character and creeping you out, even though, like, the setting is a little unconventional, in the sense that most of the scary stuff happens in broad daylight, which I thought was really... It was great job on Ty West as a director for making this film as creepy as it was, despite, like, all the things that you think would make it less creepy, but no, it really succeeded. And I'm very excited for Maxine, the third film in this whole, like, X franchise. I like how Ty West has been taking us through the decades with the these like films, like because X was set during the 70s and Pearl was set during World War One, and now Maxine apparently set during the 80s, and I'm here for it. And the next film, and again, not one I had a chance to review. Like I said, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Like I said, that night just I could not like muster the energy to give an in-depth review. This is the follow-up to Black Panther, one of my personal favorite MCU films, and Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in peace. Like this, Letitia Wright, who like Shuri's actress, she was thrown in a circumstance that she did not deserve to be in because of Chadwick Boseman so abruptly passing away, and how they like intertwine that with the MCU, how like T'Challa passes away abruptly. Letitia Wright, she stood up to the plate when she very easily could not have, and her performance as Shuri and everything that Shuri has to go through throughout the film was just, oh my gosh, the action scenes were super great, and the performances were great too, and the villains were interesting. I really like how they incorporate like Mayan mythology, because obviously Black Panther is an African setting with African characters, so there's a huge emphasis on African culture, but still intertwines with other cultures too, which you saw that in the trailer with the villains like talking to whales and cool stuff like that. Yeah, like this has been like a tough year I know people have really not been pleased with the MCU. I know that not everyone really liked this movie, but I did. Again, it's nowhere near as good as the first Black Panther in my opinion, but like again, Letitia Wright, I just have a lot more respect for her now as an actress, and my love for the MCU has faded within recent years. They just don't make MCU movies the way they used to, like ever since Endgame rolled around, because Phase 4 of the MCU feels like the post-game. After when you're playing Pokemon, for example, you beat the Elite Four, you beat the champion, and then what's next is the post-game. Yeah, that's what the MCU feels like to me now, ever since Endgame rolled around. That was the Elite Four, that was a champion, and it was awesome, but now it's like, where do we go from here? And there seems to be like a little bit of lack of direction, because for every like really good or great MCU film we've had within the past few years, there's been some that weren't bad by any means, but could have been better. But yeah, and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was one of the better, like, Phase 4 MCU films. Now, we're cracking the top 5. These are, like, my picks for the 5 best films that came out within the past 4 months. Smile. This horror film, guys, again, I saw my fair share of horror films this year. This was definitely, like, one that stood out from the pack. Like, Smile was so scary, and it was... Yeah, the trailer did... people walked in thinking it was going to be cheesy, or that it was going to be, like, cliche, or redundant. I walked in with optimistic expectations, and I was not disappointed. Like, I really sympathized, because my favorite, like, I'm very particular about horror films, like, because I don't scare super easily, so my favorite horror films tend to be more, like, character-driven and, like, atmosphere-driven, rather than, like, blood and gore-driven, or, like, just, like, or... I don't like it when horror movies are too reliant on like gore or jump scares. And yeah, Smile does have like those kind of moments. It definitely warrants its R rating. But yeah, I felt like it really made me sympathize with the lead character, because from her, like, the whole movie is from her perspective, and you see this demon just haunting her and just like tormenting her. And there were scenes where like I had to like tuck up my legs from under the seat. I was like, oh my gosh, because I felt like I was there dealing with this demon. And yeah, and I walked out of theater. I would recommend, like, obviously it's not in theaters anymore, but like I would encourage people to see this movie in theaters when they had the chance to do so, because like it's really great to see this film with a crowd right next to you, because everyone in the theater was just like, oh my gosh, this film is going there, and it did, and it worked so well. And yeah, next film I gotta discuss is Pinocchio. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, that is. I just watched this movie on Netflix, and I think it's funny how I have not watched the Disney remake of Pinocchio, and I refuse to do so. I refuse to watch live-action Disney remakes. I've heard abysmal things for Disney's Pinocchio, and yet I heard nothing but praises for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, so I decided to give it a watch on Netflix. And yeah, Guillermo del Toro, he's one of my favorite directors, and he does touch base on like the darker side of Pinocchio's origin story, like from the original novel, but still has that like very distinctive Guillermo del Toro flair. Like, yeah, the stop motion animation is absolutely stunning, And there's some creepy characters where I saw them on screen. I was like, yep, this is reminding me of Pan's Labyrinth and Shape of Water, and it's just so Del Toro, and I'm so here for it. It touches base on like war and fascism and even like alcoholism and like addiction in a few scenes with Geppetto in this film, and you know, how their different interactions play with each other, you know, the whole father-son dynamic. It goes, like, we've seen Pinocchio on screen plenty of times before, but this Pinocchio takes it in a direction that I've never seen it before, and I thought it worked really well. Probably gonna, I could see it winning the Oscar for Best Animated Feature when award season comes around. I can see the same thing with Puss in Boots, you know, The Last Wish. I just saw this film the other night as well, and that's my pick for third best film that came out this fall season. Like, yeah, I saw the trailer for The Last Wish, you know, a few months ago, like the rest of us did, and I was optimistic going into it, but guys, this film really succeeded. It succeeded my expectations, because this December has just been like the December of legacy sequels for films that are at least 10 years old now. You know, we have A Way of Water that was released 13 years after the first Avatar film, and yet The Last Wish was released 11 years after the first Puss in Boots film, which, yeah, I think the sequel, Last Wish, is a lot better than the first the Puss in Boots, because, like, it takes this whole, like, Shrek verse in a different direction, and I'm so happy that Shrek 5 is finally being confirmed and is coming out, like, fairly soon. Like, I'm so, oh my gosh, the memes are gonna be so glorious, I know it already, but the animation it's distinct compared to other DreamWorks films, I think, because in a day and age where the animation world is so, like, heavily dominated by, like, computer animation, DreamWorks has been taking efforts to set themselves apart from the other studios. Like, I saw this with The Bad Guys earlier this year, where, like, they tried making it a little more flashy and cartoonish in appearance. That is back here in The Last Wish, and there's scenes where they mix in, like, the computer animation with, like, Flash and, you know, traditional animation, and it worked so well. And this is also one of the darker DreamWorks films that I've seen. Like, I could see some scenes in The Last Wish scaring the heck out of some kids. The action scenes, despite its PG rating, were very intense, and I loved the characters. Florence Pugh voicing Goldilocks was a very pleasant surprise. I thought she did a fantastic job as Goldilocks, and I'm very, like, honestly, I'm totally in DreamWorks' corner. I'd love to see what they're doing next. And my pick for the second best film that came out this fall is my pick for the best horror film that came out this year, and that, my friends, is Barbarian. There's no horror film I have seen in a very long time that has scared me, made me laugh, made me, like, root for the characters, and has, like, been as thought-provoking and has, like, intertwined the scares, the characters, and the humorous moments with a lot of social commentary. There's a lot of, like, issues and real world subjects that this film addresses in a very, like, nuanced way. Like, yeah, it was getting its point across, and it challenges you to think what you feel about, like, certain subjects that are, you know, on the conscious level, but it's never, like, preachy or obnoxious or pandering about it. You know, there is, like, that happy middle ground where, yeah, this film, it's rated R, it's definitely a horror film, it's violent, it's gory, it's disturbing, but it's not brainless about it. And yeah, like, Georgina Campbell, especially as the lead character in Barbarian, was just so excellent. Justin Long plays just the slimiest douchebag in Barbarian, and again, it just works so well. From the performances, the direction, the writing, it's just so spot on. And again, it's difficult to watch. It does require you to be in a certain headspace, you know, because I think all good horror films are like that. But yeah, like, Barbarian's definitely a must-watch, whether you, like, consider yourself a fan of horror films or not. And this is a part of the video, like I said, my favorite film that came out this fall is The Way of Water, so if you still haven't watched Way of Water, and if you don't want spoilers, I would suggest clicking away from this video in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, last warning, it's spoiler talk time. There were two burning questions that I had throughout Way of Water that, like, again, I love this film, it was so worth a 13-year wait, but these two questions that went unanswered kind of pulled me out of the narrative at a few scenes. Those two questions being, one, how do the Metkayina speak English? And second of all, how did Norm get his avatar back? Because Norm's avatar died in the last fight scene of the first film. Not Norm himself. His human body was okay, but his avatar was gunned down during the whole Battle of Pandora, like, last 30 minutes of the first film. And yet, in the sequel, again, Norm and Max, they're not on screen a whole lot in Way of Water, but, like, Norm has his avatar again. Did his avatar actually die at the end of the first film, or was it, or when it was like shot by the RDA troops, did it just go like unconscious or something like that? So why, Norm couldn't link back to it, or did they just like recreate a new avatar? And if yes, wouldn't that be ridiculously difficult and expensive, like within the context of the film? Or did they just like revive his avatar body? Like there was just every time Norm was on screen, I couldn't help but ask myself that. I did really like how this film kind of played with people's speculations with Curie's father, because we've known about Curie and how she's being played by Sigourney Weaver and had some kind of connection with Grace Augustine from the first film. And in the film, I think it was Spider or Loak or one of Jake's kids was like, oh, Norm is totally Curie's dad. Look at all these like all this old footage of Norm popping in during Grace's video logs. Like, he's so Curie's dad. I still think about, because I know people were theorizing that Norm had like a romance with Grace in the first film that all just happened off screen, which is, maybe he knocked her up or something like that, in his avatar body. People were playing with that, but I think personally Curie's father is Aowa, because in the first film they tried, saving Grace when she was dying from her gunshot wounds by like, channeling her conscious to her avatar body, and they tried to do the whole like passing through the Eye of Aowa, but of course that didn't work because, Grayson was too weak to do so. Maybe when they tried doing that ritual, Aowa did save Grace, not like in the way we expected. Like, instead of saving like herself, they just like Aowa gave her the impregnated her in a weird sense. Is Curie supposed to be like the baby Jesus of the Avatar world? Because think about it, Grace's avatar is kind of like the Virgin Mary, because it's very unclear like who Curie's father was. So Curie being the daughter of Aowa or something, I don't know. We could probably discuss that all night, but I just want to move on. Like, yeah, the Metkayina speak English. I understand that like Jake already knows the Metkayina's clan leader. Like, they've already met. That's established. But like the entire time, every time the Metkayina are on screen, with the exception of that village, those villagers that the recon soldiers, sort of just like burn that scene where they storm that one village trying to find out where Jake is. That's like the only time we ever see like the ocean people speaking like Na'vi. While the Metkayina, they just speak English all the time. But it's like, I get it. Taina Nowari, that's his name. Taina Nowari and Jake already know each other. But like, how is it that they speak English as their first language? Like, they never speak Na'vi, even like amongst each other when no humans or avatars are in the room. So it just didn't, that to me just didn't make any sense. Like, movie, can you please explain that? But yeah, other than those two burning questions, I still, like, there were some flaws I saw with the film's narrative that did point out a little bit of a few scenes, but nothing that really like just ruined the film for me. That's the important thing. Like, again, Way of Water, I love this movie, and I'm so happy that I finally lived to see an Avatar sequel after years of it being delayed. And yeah, Quaritch returning for this film, like Stephen Lang as Quaritch in his new blue body, the recon bodies, he is just the Quaritchest Quaritch to have ever Quaritched. Like, when he snaps out of his unconsciousness and he just like punches Private Pancake right in the face. Yeah, I know his name is Wainfleet, but for the sake of these reviews and these Avatar videos I've made, I call him Private Pancake because of how the Hammerhead Titanothere just like killed him in the end of the first film. Just splat, there he goes. He's like a pancake, so I call him Private Pancake. But Quaritch just straight up punches Wainfleet in his recon body, and I was like, yes, there's a Quaritch I know to love. And I was walking into some hoping that the recoms would speak the Na'vi language, and they did that. Like, Quaritch started, he started saying like, oh, we start by using their language, and Spider laughs at him for it because like, oh, you sound like a 3-year-old. like he's talking like a toddler. Again, it just goes to show like how fully detailed Na'vi are as a culture and as a language. Again, Pandora as like a fictional like universe is Middle Earth caliber in terms of like lore and detail and culture and stuff like that. And the way they detail the Na'vi's language to where like, hey, you can sound like a toddler instead of like an adult. That's just, to me, that's just amazing. And the fact they intertwine it with the villains for once was very well done. And the villains, like, you know, the ocean scenes where they attack the Tulkins, you know, the giant whale-like creatures that the Metatine have a very close connection with. That scene in particular where they just, where the whalers, because that's what they are, they killed one of the Tulkins and they extract her like brain juice or whatever it was called, and Spider points out, I was like, oh, so you're just gonna take the brain goo that like causes, you know, that just eliminates humans from aging and just leave the rest of the body to waste? That reminded me of like how French fur trappers would slaughter American bison during the 1800s because they knew that Native Americans were reliant on the bison. The fur trappers would just kill bison and leave their bodies to rot. It reminded me of that because I love how socially and historically conscious James Cameron is when writing these Avatar films, because the first film was all about like anti-colonialism, anti-deforestation, how like the RDA were supposed to symbolize colonizers and imperialism, you know, throughout human history, and the Na'vi were supposed to represent like, you know, Africans and Native Americans. Yeah, those same themes are brought back. And I was actually talking to like one of the zookeepers at the zoo I'm interning at the other day about it, because they all went to see Way of Water just like I did, and she mentioned, you know, the saddest part is that people who went to see Way of Water probably care more about the Tulkins, the giant sea creatures in this like movie, more than they care about real whales or real sea creatures in real life, which is kind of a sad reality. And and again, James Cameron, his love is the ocean. That's like one of his biggest loves in life, and it's really pulled through here in Way of Water. And I was so here for it. And like, again, I noticed a lot of similarities, like because the first Avatar film and the sequel, the narratives, they follow similar beats. You know, Jake in the first film, it starts by him having to learn the Na'vi and their ways and like trying to be one of them. And the same thing happens here, like him and Neytiri and their kids had learned to be one of the Metkayina. And there's this really tragic scene involving like either their home being destroyed or something very dear and close to them, because the Metkayina, they love the Tulkins, and yet one of them perishes very brutally. And Kate Winslet's character, the chieftainess, or like the Sahik, or you know, whatever her character is again, yeah, she just laments. It's like, oh, she was my sister and they killed her, and you get the pain in her voice. And Kate Winslet, the fact that she can hold her breath for 7 minutes, man, I'm still just completely dumbfounded by that. And there, once again, is a Deus Ex Machina moment where one of Pandora's local like megafauna like saves the day, because in the first film, the Na'vi in the last fight scene, their backs are up against a wall, you know, they're facing heavy casualties because the RDA just overwhelms them with their superior technology. And then the Hammerhead Titanotheres and the Econs and the Viper Wolves and the Thanator just come in out of nowhere and just like wreck the whole convoy and save the day. Similar thing happened in Way of Water when Jake's kids are being held hostage on the ship, and yet Payakan, the rogue Tulkin, just breaches out of nowhere and flops on the ship. And I was like, oh, yes, my boy. Like, that scene was so cool. And yeah, like Spider throughout this film, again, I touched base on this briefly in my spoiler-free review. I really like Spider as a character. There's a lot of potential that he has, but there's a lot of decisions that he made in Way of Water that are very eyebrow-raising, to say the least, because it's established that like Quaritch is Spider's father, right? So I heard for a few months that people were theorizing that Spider was going to betray, you know, Jake and Neytiri and just go full-blown RDA because they're human just like he is. I'm glad I didn't take that route, but throughout this film, his loyalties, like, kind of go back and forth. Like, he takes Quaritch and Private Pancake and the other recoms to where the mountain banshees are at, and Quaritch tames an Econ, and it's used throughout the film. And then Spider is, like, super upset with Quaritch when he, like, has all the village people at gunpoint when they destroy their village. And that and then Spider goes back to like showing them how things are done, and then he takes a fire hydrant and just like damages the ship's like interior controls, and then like he saves Quaritch from drowning at the end of the film, and Quaritch says like, "Hey, let's go," only for Spider to like hiss at him, that signature Na'vi like hiss at their enemies, like, and he just runs back to the water. Like, it's just like his loyalty is like just flip flopped throughout the film. I think for the sake of his character, it would make more sense if they were just a little more consistent with, Spider being just good. Because I get it, like, Spider wants to feel accepted by, his peers. Because Neytiri, holds him at knife point at the end of the film because, she's lost one kid. She's lost Neteyam. And so, like, you took a kid from me, so I'm going to take a kid from you. Like, that scene was really intense. And Zoe Saldana, like, Academy, wake up. Seriously, there needs to be, like, an Oscar category for motion capture performances. Because that scene when Neteyam dies, like, when he's gunned down at the end of the film, it's like, I was in the theater, I was just like, damn, like, I have a pretty thick skin, it takes a lot for me to cry at movies, but that was a hard scene for me to watch, especially because for Neytiri's character, like, his, in the first film, in the extended version, there's a scene where Grace explains, like, to Jake what happened to her school and how Neytiri had an older sister named Saiwanan, who was killed by RDA soldiers right in front of Neytiri. So Neytiri has seen her sister die, she's seen her father die, and she's even seen her own son die, all at the hands of the same enemy. And it just, it entrenches her even further as, like, this unstoppable, like, war machine, because you see her, like, just go full-blown mama bear on the RDA troops on that ship at the last scene, just trying to save her kids. And I'm just so here for it. And for the sequels, I really hope they don't just stick with the oceans. Like, in the first film, I get it, like, Jake wants to keep his family safe, so he has to take Neytiri and the kids somewhere far away. But then the new Oloy Khan, I don't even remember his name, that scene where, like, Jake passes down his, like, leadership duties to this kid. I don't even remember, like, again, I don't remember his name. I think it would have made a lot more sense they established who the new Oloy Khan was, or maybe they did make, I think it would be interesting to see the Omatakaya make one last final stand for their home, because, like, in the opening act of the film, we see that the Na'vi have, like, picked up some RDA weapons and have figured out how firearms work. Like, you see one of the Na'vi firing rockets at the trains. I think it would have been really cool to see, like, an action scene, like, right before the second act, where the Omatakaya make one last final stand, like, to save, like, their forest home, but it doesn't work, so therefore Jake has to take Neytiri, the kids, and, like, the remaining Omatakaya members, like, as refugees to the Metakaya. That would have been really interesting. I think this film would have benefited from something like that. But, of course, not everybody received, and that's fine. But yeah, like, Jake is a completely different person, like, in Way of Water than he is in the first film, because obviously, like, he has a lot of character development in the first Avatar. You see him go from, like, dumb grunt just following orders to, defending what he initially set out to destroy, and then 10 years later, the Way of Water, now he's a dad, he's a chief, and his priorities are just totally shifted. And again, Sam Worthington did a gonzo performance as Jake Sully, like always. And yeah, that's kind of that's all I really want to just, like, get off my chest to you guys about, like, Way of Water for spoilers, because there's a lot that I had to hold back in my spoiler-free review, so I'm really glad I got this off my chest to you guys. And yeah, my New Year's Eve Q&A, like, if I can't film it on New Year's Eve because I have to be at the zoo on New Year's Eve, like, during the day, and then right after that, because I'm juggling this internship with a part-time job at a grocery store here in Scottsbluff, so I gotta close the store right after that, so I don't think I'm gonna have the time to make my answer video on New Year's Eve. So, like I said, I might just do it on New Year's Day, and if that's a big case, my apologies in advance. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like, if you enjoyed my ranking, my spoiler talk for Way of Water, give this video a thumbs up, like, please. 2022 was such an amazing year. I know we didn't get as many views this year as we did last year, but I'm still very, very grateful for you guys. Seriously, this channel means the world to me. You guys have an awesome New Year's. Stay beastly.